This specific mountain range in Arizona has a higher kill count than a Game of Thrones wedding. And nobody seems to notice. If you look at the evidence and the official police reports, the Superstition Mountains don't just sit there, they actively hunt people. We are talking about a geological formation that behaves like a disgruntled bouncer at a dive bar. But the truth isn't about geology, it's about the shiny yellow metal hiding inside. Meet Jacob Waltz. In 1891, this German immigrant, who we call the Dutchman because American geography skills have always been terrible, died with the location of the richest gold mine in history locked inside his brain. He treated the map like his Netflix password. He shared it with absolutely no one. Now, you might think, oh, just another lost treasure story, right? Wrong. This isn't a fairy tale. This is a crime scene. Since Waltz took his last breath, thousands of experts have marched into those mountains with GPS, drones, and egos the size of Texas. Most come back empty-handed, some come back in body bags, and a few, well, they come back without their heads. Yeah, we will get to the mysterious decapitations and the sniper hiding in the rocks in a minute. But first, we have to look at how one grumpy German immigrant accidentally started the deadliest treasure hunt in American history. So, rewind the clock to the 1860s. Arizona is basically just rocks, cactus, and people shooting at each other over water rights. Enter Jacob Waltz. He's German, but Americans hear an accent and yell, "Dutchman!" because accuracy is for nerds. Waltz isn't your average prospector scratching dirt for minimum wage. He's playing 4D chess while everyone else is playing checkers. The timeline gets messy here, but the classified records, or at least the dusty court documents, suggest he didn't find the gold. He likely stumbled upon an existing mine, the legendary Peralta mine, after the original owners, a Mexican family, got evicted by the local Apache tribe in a massacre that makes a Tarantino movie look like a PBS special. It's the 19th century equivalent of finding a USB drive with 10,000 Bitcoin in a dumpster. Free real estate. Waltz starts showing up in Phoenix, paying for whiskey and supplies with gold ore so pure it looked like jewelry. We aren't talking dust, we are talking nuggets the size of walnuts. The local economy panicked. People started following him like paparazzi chasing a Kardashian. But Waltz? He was the original gray man. He'd walk into the superstitions, vanish into the rocks, and reappear weeks later with saddlebags heavy enough to break a horse's spine. He even had a partner for a hot minute, Jacob Weiser. But then Weiser mysteriously vanished. Maybe it was the Apaches. Maybe it was a rock slide. Or maybe Waltz decided that splitting the profit 50-50 was bad for his ROI. If you think that's cold, wait until you see what happened to the people who tried to track him with actual maps. Fast forward to 1891. Waltz is 81 years old, and his lungs are failing faster than a crypto exchange in a bear market. He's lying in bed in Phoenix, cared for by a woman named Julia Thomas. Now, Julia wasn't doing this out of the kindness of her heart. She knew the old man was sitting on a literal fortune. She was basically the original girl boss, leaning in for the payout. As Waltz fades out, he decides to finally spill the beans, but instead of drawing a map like a normal human being, he decides to turn into a Batman villain. He starts speaking in riddles. He tells her the mine is near a rock formation that looks like a weaver's needle. He says you can see the military trail from the entrance, but you can't see the entrance from the trail. He mumbles about a stone house and a face looking up. It was the 19th century equivalent of sending a "you up" text to the entire city of Phoenix. It was vague, confusing, and practically designed to ruin lives. He didn't give coordinates, he gave vibes. Julia Thomas grabbed these incoherent ramblings and immediately sold her bakery business, bad move, to finance an expedition, worse move. She marched into the desert with zero survival skills and a head full of dreams. Spoiler alert, she didn't find the gold. She went bankrupt and died poor. But she made one fatal mistake. She told other people the riddles. And that's when the timeline goes from sad story to horror movie. Because the next guy who went looking found something way worse than an empty mine shaft. Fast forward to the summer of 1931. The Great Depression is hitting America like a semi-truck, and people are desperate enough to eat shoe leather. Enter Adolph Ruth. Ruth isn't your rugged Clint Eastwood type. He's an elderly amateur with a limp and the survival instincts of a golden retriever. But he has something nobody else has, a map he claims came from the original Peralta family in Mexico. He waves this paper around like a Wonka golden ticket, telling everyone he's going to be rich. He marches into the superstitions in the middle of June, which, if you know Arizona, is basically walking into an active oven. The locals tell him, "Hey, maybe don't." He ignores them. He goes in. 2 weeks later, radio silence. A massive search party scours the canyons. Nothing. But 6 months later, an archaeological expedition finds something interesting. It's Adolf Ruth. Well, part of him. Specifically, his skull. It had 2 holes in it. The coroner said it looked like high-powered rifle shots fired at point-blank range. Here is the kicker. His body was found a mile away, buried in a shallow grave. His map? Gone. His diary was found with the cryptic note, Veni, Vidi, Vici. I came, I saw, I conquered. Whatever he saw, it conquered him right back. The police ruled it a suicide. Yes, you read that right. A suicide, where he shot himself twice in the head and then buried his own body a mile away. If that sounds suspicious, just wait until you meet the guy who started shooting at tourists for sport. Fast forward to the 1960s. The gold rush is over, but the crazy is just getting started. The superstitions have become a magnet for every conspiracy theorist, weekend warrior, and guy going through a midlife crisis. Enter the crazy Dutchman, not the original one. There's a guy living in the mountains who decides that he owns the gold. He doesn't have a deed, he doesn't have a permit, he has a high-powered rifle and a very bad attitude. People start reporting shots fired. Hikers claim they hear bullets whizzing past their ears near Weaver's Needle. But the authorities? They shrug. It's the Wild West, right? Until the bodies start piling up. In the span of a few years, over 30 people vanish or turn up dead in the exact same area. We are talking about experienced outdoorsmen found with bullet holes in their backs. We are talking about prospectors found decapitated, again with the heads. One victim, a prospector named James A. Cravey, disappears in 1947. 6 months later, hikers find his headless skeleton tied in a blanket in a canyon miles away from where he parked. The coroner ruled it exposure, because apparently the sun makes your head fall off and ties you up. The locals whisper about the Peralta curse or Apache spirits protecting the gold. But looking at the ballistics, it seems the spirits are using .30-06 rounds. This mountain isn't haunted, it's occupied. And the occupants are very, very protective of their retirement fund. But here's the twist. While everyone was looking for gold, they missed the massive geological clue staring them right in the face. Here is where the nerds ruin the party. Geologists, who are basically professional buzzkills with rock hammers, have looked at the Superstition Mountains and said, actually, this is impossible. See, the superstitions are mostly volcanic rock, tough, rhyolite, and solidified ash. Gold, being a diva, typically hangs out in metamorphic rock or quartz veins. Finding a massive gold mine inside a volcano is like finding a vegan at a Texas barbecue. It shouldn't happen. So, the official science says the Lost Dutchman mine is a myth. They claim Waltz was a liar, a con man, or just hallucinating from drinking too much cactus juice. But here is the problem with the science. We have the physical receipts. Waltz didn't just talk about gold, he spent it. The ore found under his bed after he died was bonanza grade, crazy high purity. If the mountain is volcanic trash, where did he get the gold? This leads to the cache theory. What if it wasn't a mine at all? What if Walt stumbled upon a hidden stockpile, a vault where the Peraltas or the Apaches hid their loot? He wasn't mining, he was making withdrawals from an ATM he didn't own. This explains why no one can find the vein. There is no vein. There is just a hole in the ground that ran empty 100 years ago. But that doesn't explain why the FBI suddenly got involved and classified a bunch of files about the area. Fast forward to the modern era. You'd think with LiDAR, satellites, and billionaires with too much free time, we'd have found this thing by now. But here is where Uncle Sam steps in to ruin the fun. In 1983, the government designated the Superstition Mountains as a strict wilderness area, That means no mining, no digging, and definitely no heavy machinery. It's like telling a kid he can look at the cookie jar, but if he touches the lid, he goes to federal prison. Conspiracy theorists, my people, point out that shortly after this ban, hikers started reporting unmarked helicopters buzzing the Weaver's Needle area. Others claim they finally found the specific stone house landmark mentioned in Waltz's riddles, only to come back a week later and find it blasted into gravel. Who carries enough dynamite to erase a geological landmark? Not a backpacker with a granola bar. That's a demolition crew. The official story is public safety. They claim they are just tired of scraping tourists off the rocks and paying for rescue choppers. But the classified records, and plenty of angry forum posts, suggest the Department of Interior knows exactly what is out there. Maybe they already emptied the vault. Maybe they found something else, like those Spanish artifacts that don't belong in this hemisphere. Or maybe they just enjoy watching us suffer. If you think the government stealing your gold is bad, wait until you hear the final theory that makes Jacob Waltz look like a genius and everyone else look like a complete moron. Here is the punchline God wrote for this joke. Most historians now believe Jacob Waltz didn't have a secret mine. He was likely a high grader, a polite term for a guy who stole high-quality ore from the vulture mine where he actually worked and hid his stash in the superstitions. He wasn't guarding a geological miracle, he was guarding his getaway bag. The map? A decoy. The riddles? Senile ramblings of a dying man trying to impress a baker. And the thousands of people who died looking for it? They walked into a meat grinder for a stash that Waltz probably spent on whiskey and candles 100 years ago. The real winner here wasn't Waltz, or the Peraltas, or the headless tourists. It was the guys selling the maps. It was the gas stations, the gear shops, and the YouTube channels making ad revenue off the mystery. The Lost Dutchman isn't a place, it's a mirror. It shows us exactly who we are. Greedy, gullible, hairless apes who will ignore a sign that says, "Danger, sniper," just for a 0.001% chance at finding a shiny rock. So, if you're planning a trip to the Superstition Mountains, go ahead. Bring plenty of water. Watch out for the cliffs. And if you see a headless skeleton holding a map, maybe just leave it alone. Because the only thing hidden in those hills is a lesson we refuse to learn.